So we spent the night in a halfway house of sorts. The PEA is a faction of rangers and druids and forest protectors. It stands for Pencampwyr and Amgylchedd, and it's basically Elvish for warriors of the wilderness. And the PEA look after the balance between wilderness and civilization. They look after the very tentative balance that is waged between a civilization needing to expand and the wilderness being trodden on and deforested and overhunted. And one of the things that they do is in wooded areas, such as the wood that we are currently in. It is based on Welsh after Matthias. In my world, Elvish is based on Welsh. They give, in the woods that we are currently inhabiting, known as the Fair Woods, Faire, and other woods like it, they will place at strategic locations cabins that are free to use for anyone who is wandering through these woods. It is a way to protect people from the dangers of the wilderness. And we have come across one such cabin on our hunting of these goblins. We found that the goblins had ransacked it for anything useful, any of the pots and pans, and broken the lock on the front door. But we made our way back to that after raiding the goblins and dealing with them. But because we saw more tents that were not occupied, we figured that there might be more goblins out there, and we decided to get out of there before we encountered any more of them. So we went back to that chalet overnight, and we boarded up the door best we could, and we set a hunting trap in front of the door. This hunting trap that we have in our inventory, we set it just on the inside of the door, so that if anyone bursts in a hurry, we would get a bit of warning, and they would get a nasty surprise. And then Mel, our giant bee companion, and us, we went off to sleep, and we drifted to sleep. We were rather exhausted. Each of us, by the time we got to this cabin, had a level of exhaustion. So neither of us keep watch through the night. Thankfully, for us, nothing attacks. Nothing in this area seems to have our scent. Nothing approaches the cabin to try and look for food or look for things to steal. One of the more dangerous things in the area was the goblins in the goblin camp, and they were largely dealt with, it seems. And so we end up having a restful night. While we're sleeping, we have interesting dreams, however. There are moments of being out on the hunt. We find ourselves in the Giftigeld forest. For those joining us, Giftigeld Forest is the forest that was local to our hometown where we grew up. And it is home to a very large green dragon, which destroyed our hometown and killed our family, and has since become our sworn enemy. We vowed one day to kill Unguhef, the green dragon, but we are much too inexperienced to do that yet. We find ourselves hunting in the Giftigeld Forest. And as we hunt, we find that we are particularly lucky today. Our arrows seem to be meeting their targets. We managed to take down several kills before noon, and we've got enough to feed our entire family, and then some. We might be able to put on a feast tonight. And so we go to reclaim one of our arrows from the deer's hide. And as we get there, we notice that the arrows are sticking out in crisscrossed kind of direction. One of the arrows is sticking out of the hide in this way, and another arrow is sticking out in this way, and they form a perfect cross in the shafts sticking out of the corpse of this deer. And as we approach them and notice this, we're hit by a realization that crossed arrows are one of the symbols of the god of beasts and the god of hunting, Altamez. Altamez is a god of animal kind, and we take it as a sign that Altamez is looking over us and is appreciating our efforts in this hunt, maybe helping us. Maybe this is why our arrows are meeting their mark. We draw them out, wipe them off, and return them to our quiver. And then we pull out the hunting knife and begin to cut away at the hide of this deer. However, the hide seems tough and hard to get into, much tougher than it should be. You find that the scales seem to prevent your knife from getting into them. These damn green scales of this creature doesn't want to seem to come off in your hand. You push and pry, and eventually you manage to pry one of them off. And at that point you realize, this isn't a deer. And you look down and you see a green dragon, no more than a few years old, dead, curled up, a wormling. At this point you hear the voice in your head saying, "Kill her." And you think, no, I can't. I can't kill her. Kill her, or I will make you watch as I eat her. You don't want to kill her. You're not sure if you can bring yourself to do it. And then you feel this sense of foreboding, and it wakes you, and you realize you're in a cabin, and you are terrified, and you feel the way you did when you first saw Sada, your younger sister, dead in your arms. And you're not sure why you feel this way. You're not sure what you were dreaming of. That it was simply just a dragon wormling in front of you, and there was nothing. You didn't recognize the voice. It wasn't anything to do with your family or the incident from the day 3 years ago when Unguhef killed them all. But you're not sure what it does, but the feeling is the same as when you saw Sada and had to wipe the blood from her mouth with your blanket. It takes you a good 10 minutes to sit up and shake off this feeling of utter terror. But eventually you convince yourself that it was nothing. You're perfectly safe here. You can hear a gentle murmuring of a bee curled up in the corner and sleeping. You try and go back to sleep, but this voice in your head keeps sort of echoing. Kill her. Eventually you start to see sunlight coming in through the shutters in this cabin, and the bee's wings, and then it starts to wake up, and you realize that your companion Mel is waking up. You hadn't had a very restful night, but it was restful enough that both of you find that your level of exhaustion has been reset. You recover 1 level of exhaustion. You recover any hit points that you may have lost. And then you set out towards the front of the door. And you take your hunter's trap back, which was not triggered during the night for any reason. You set it back, you hang it off the edge of your bag again, and you unbolt this. You unbarricade the door as best you can. And the first option of the day is upon you, and you guys get to choose what it is that Apis is going to do with this brand new day. So what I do is I log into my Nightbot, and then I go into my giveaways, and I type in a keyword. And then you guys, if you want to be in with a chance to decide what Apis does first on this day of theirs, you can type this keyword into the chat. And doing so gives you the chance to be drawn from it. It's just a simple enter and I draw. So the word is !dream. If you want to be in with a chance to win, you put !dream. DREAM. Just like that, King. So Mel sparks to life and gets up, and she says to you in Sylvan,
I'm glad to see that the goblins didn't follow us here. Did you have a good sleep?
And you say, well, I feel rested. And you consider whether or not to tell Mel about the dream. And Mel says,
I had strange visions. I've never had visions before while I sleep. I hear your people call them dreaming.
And you say, yes, we dream when we see things during the sleep. You've never dreamt before?
Not in this way, no.
Well, I actually had some dreams as well. That's why I wasn't feeling super restful, but it was a bad dream. We call those nightmares.
Well, at least they are not real, right? I understand that they are not. They are just random dreams.
And you say, well, some believe that they're premonitions. Some believe that they're the brain just deciding what to do. I don't know exactly what I believe. I just know that I didn't really like it. Alright, so everybody who has entered, I'll give you 10 more seconds to enter if you haven't already. !dream if you want to be in with a chance to decide what Apis is going to do with their morning. Marie, you get to decide what is Apis going to do for this morning. Typing. No worries. So yesterday we attacked some goblins. I think Apis probably spends some of the morning, at least, some of the thoughts in the mind would be on thinking on what happened during the fight. It's said that Apis is not. It's never been said that Apis is a pacifist. There's quite a far distance between being a pacifist and being one to avoid trouble where possible. It's not exactly the same thing. But even so, Apis does recollect. Apis does consider their actions from the night before. How they took a goblin in their hands and used their own strength to snap their neck. They wonder whether that was the right thing to do, whether it was the moral thing to do. They think on that. They think on whether they are right in their actions. Some among that goblin camp's number had proven themselves perfectly capable of murder, and many among their number had proven themselves capable of theft. They had proven themselves capable of animal abuse. But was it right to kill them? You're not sure. Maybe it was. Maybe it was the only course of action. Maybe if you hadn't have killed them, they would have killed you. They'd certainly shown aggression towards you. But it's the sort of thing that goes through Apis's mind this morning. Was it right? Was there any other way that we could have handled it? Did we need to kill them? Did the goblins that we did kill meet a quick and painless end? did they deserve a quick and painless end? All of these thoughts go through Apis' mind as they sort of unbar the door and consider what they're going to do. Classic morality debate, yes. They also wonder who was in those larger tents. The tent that was the large tent that was largely empty, except for a huge mound of dried hay and very little possessions. What was that tent for? We're carrying far too much gold on us, Apis decides. So we take the safest path through the woods back to the riverbank. We tell Mel everything about the past, everything about our family, who we've lost, about our life, and the vision in the dream, and hope that Mel shares the details of her dream. Wonderful. So we decide not to stick around this cabin too much longer. We don't want to risk it getting encountered by any of the goblins or anything else that's potentially even worse than goblins. Thank you, Quill. And so we set off with Mel and we say, hey Mel, I need to head back to my I need to head to a storage place that I keep some valuable possessions that I don't want on me. We've got quite a lot of gold on me right now from that goblin camp, and until I can find out whose it is, I guess it's mine. Will you come with me? I've got some things I'd like to tell you about.
And Mel says, of course, I am with you to the end, Apis. You saved my life from these horrible goblins, and I want to adventure. I told you this. I want to be out with you. I want to see the world. I want to see what is happening out there.
So as we move, I'm going to make a survival check in the chat just to check how long it takes us to find where we stashed our gold. We will find it eventually, but the survival check will just tell me how long it'll take. So we rolled a d20 plus 4, we got an 8 total, but because we are a ranger and because our favoured terrain is forest and we are in a forest, we get to add 2 to that, so that was a 10. So we got a 10 total. That's about average. That's what an average person would get if you rolled a d20 enough times. Someone with a 0 for survival. But for us, it's a little below our average. And so we walk and talk, and we find that as we're talking, we've kind of missed our turn off a couple of times, and we're not really paying attention to our surroundings as best we would be if we were traveling on our own. So we start by telling Mel the story of our beginnings. So as Apis tells Mel this story, the story of them returning to town after a hunt to find that the green dragon Unguhef, who rules the Giftegeld forest, had for some reason, unknown to Apis, then or since, had taken some sort of action against Shafgushul and had destroyed it, and had breathed poison throughout the streets, killing everyone that they could. Many people were missing, there was blood throughout the streets, they couldn't find various people. Apis never actually found their mother's body. They never found their older sister's body, Yangrit. They did find their father, their older brother, and their younger sister, as well as many of their friends and extended family. There were people, Apis wondered whether the dragon had gone hungry. As they talk, Apis starts to get a feeling that maybe, what if the voice in their dream was Unguhef? It did mention eating. As they get to this part of the story, as they're telling Mel what their fears were, they wonder what these people went through as their last moments of life, as an enormous green dragon would have bared down upon them with teeth and poison pouring from the orifices of their face. It gets a little much, and Apis stops to compose himself a little. At this point, Apis realizes they haven't really been paying attention to where they're going in the forest, and backtracks a little, saying, I think I've missed the river. We should have gone south a little bit further. I'm getting all lost. And you walk on for another 10-15 minutes or so in silence, Mel just buzzing along next to you. You start to talk again and you tell Mel of the rest of your dream. How there was a green dragon wormling and a voice that told you to kill her. And you're not sure who this dragon wormling was or why something would be telling you to kill her. Mel chimes in that her dream was nothing like this. It wasn't traumatic, it wasn't bad. She just dreamt of visions of other bees and larger swarms, and she seemed to be being admired by people she came across. She called them people, but you realised from the discussion that she's talking about other insects. She came across other people, other insects in the forest, insects she'd never met, and they all paid deference to her for reasons she couldn't understand. She'd always had a sway with other bees, but she'd never had a sway over other insects, and she found it interesting that this was happening to her in this vision. And then she woke up. About 2 hours of walking through this forest. You're starting to get hungry. You've not had anything to eat since probably mid yesterday, so you're probably starting to have your stomach rumbling when you finally come across the stream that marks where you should be going. And after a lot of backtracking and talking, you've caught Mel up with your backstory. And you found your way to the crook of the stream where the tributary and the stream meet, and a large boulder is sort of embedded in the floor. You find the alcove in the back of this boulder, and you take out the mossy plug that you've stuffed in there yourself, and you find in there the soft leather pouch that's all wrapped up with 2 gold pieces still in it. How much money should we store away? Marie, you still get to decide this. How much money should we stash? We've got this much money on our person. How much money should we stash? We have 2 gold stashed in there still, as you can see. You can see stashed 2 gold right down the bottom there. We've got 52 copper, which if you transferred it into silver would be 5 silver and 2 copper. And then we've got 37 silver effectively, which would be 3 gold and 7 silver. 3 or 4 of each. Well, that's what Sparrow says anyway. Keeping all the copper. You can hear my housemates. Yeah, sorry guys, there's not much I can do about that. I have told them that I'm streaming, but there's only so much I can ask of them. Keeping all the copper, keeping all the silver, and stashing the gold, because then we can always turn this to convert the copper and the silver into gold. 10 to 10 to 10. It's 10 to 1. 10 copper, 1 silver, 10 silver, 1 gold. Time to fish, King says. Could do some fishing. We don't have a fishing rod, but I'm sure we could fashion something together. Stash all of the gold. Every bit of it. Alright. So it is then. Dead Aussie Gamer, g'day, how's it going? Hope you're doing well, I'm glad you're here. So you decide, this is a lot of coins that I've got on me, and at this point you count them out. You count them out and you think, okay, if I stash all of this gold, I've still got more than 3 gold's worth of coins on me from everything else. So I'd rather stash it away than lose it to some sort of goblin attack or something. We do need a new rope. That's correct, Sparrow. The thought flies through Epis' mind that they did leave their rope tying up one of the goblins, and so we could do to buy a new rope. Also, yes, King, you could go arrow fishing. We've got 25 arrows. Got 4 gold in the stash. 4 gold. We took 4 with us. We've got yes, you are quite right. We did have 4 gold in the stash. Yeah, because there was 8. We took 4. We had 2 on us to begin with, yeah. All right, so let me go down to the money then. Money. So 31 plus 4, we've got 35 gold stashed away for us now. Got a A little river bank. The gold amount can go down to a 0. A nil. That's nil. And we're going to keep all of the silver and the copper. Alright. Suits me fine. Alright, let me just double check that's all you've said. Okay, so what do we do now? Shall we ask again in the Nightbot? Let's have a little look. So cancel that one. We'll put a new challenge in. We'll put a new thing. We'll say we'll go ! bank. 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 So if you want to be in with a chance to decide what Apis is going to do now that they've stashed their money away and they feel a little more confident in case of ambush or accident, they've got a nice hefty chunk of money stuffed stored away for a rainy day. We feel pretty confident that it's a pretty safe spot, King. If you want to be in with a chance to decide what Apis should do, you type !bank in the chat. BANK. The choice is yours. It's an open story at this point. Cover the bag with some dirt before we put the moss back. Yeah, we do what we can to make it look inconspicuous. We do our best to make it all look inconspicuous. We wrap up the gold in the leather pouch and we push it right to the back of this little stony alcove and cover it up with some dirt, and then we stuff the moss back in there as a nice little mossy plug, and we zhuzh up the grass around it so it looks like nobody's been here. It's always secure. Yeah. King Huzkak. King Huzkak. You're still in the chat? You're still here? We haven't been shopping or anything yet. No, we haven't, Lazy Titan. We need some more rope, but we don't really need much else at this stage. We went shopping recently. We've got plenty of arrows. We've got plenty of rations still. Got plenty of most things. And from our experience, we would know that we have... we would know that rope costs about 1 gold piece. 1 gold piece for 50 feet of rope. Hey, Scatty Squirrel, good to see you. Are we on a quest to find the green dragon? Absolutely not. We are level 2, and that green dragon would eat us up as if we were a tiny little... I don't know, that was not a very good analogy. It would eat us up as if we were a little snack, a little biscuit. We need to be much higher level if we're going to take on that green dragon. We simply went over our backstory for the green dragon and what happened to our companion, the giant bee. King says we're going to head downriver, taking the time to forage for breakfast and lunch. So let's do a survival check to see if we can find enough food to not need to eat one of our rations today. We should be pretty good at this, so I'll definitely give us a bonus. So 13, and with advantage, we've definitely got advantage on this because we are an outlander, so we are particularly good at foraging. So 13 plus 2 from being in a forest, that's 15. That's a decent survival check. We found out that Mel's dream was that she was finding that she had powers of persuasion over insects that she came across in the forest, even insects she'd never met before, even other insects than bees, which is particularly interesting to her. She's always had sway over other bees that she comes across, but this time it was just any old random insects in the forest. All seemed to pay her deference. So with a 15 survival check and our outlander abilities, that is more than enough to forage on our way down the river. We walk and talk with Mel. The mood starts to lighten a little more. We don't feel quite as worried about the goblins having followed us or anything like that. We keep an eye out for other dangers of the forest because we're not stupid. We are a ranger. We know that there are definitely dangers in the forest. But we keep an eye out for those, and we pick berries off of berry bushes as we go, and we see a few edible roots and edible plants as we go and dig them up. And then occasionally, maybe as we go, we find what would we want to do? They only kill when necessary, so they can probably find enough food without having to kill anything this morning. They're more than happy to hunt if they have to. It's not like Apis is vegetarian, but they don't feel it necessary to kill them right now, so they can eat their fill on berries and leaves and edible roots. We have got rations if we need it. Yeah. So as we walk down the stream, we make our way to the edge of the forest, and we're back to sort of the edge of Fair Woods. So, King, is there anything further that you'd like to add to what you would like Apis to do this morning? Hunt for mushrooms. Yeah, okay, we can do a hunt for mushrooms, sure. So Apis feels like, yeah, I want some mushrooms this morning. I feel like some mushrooms, and so they start to hunt around. They start to hunt around for mushrooms as they walk through the before they get to the edge of the forest. Then, and while you're looking for mushrooms, I'm going to have you make a perception check. Skill perception, and because it's in the forest, you get a +2. There you go. That's 22 total. Yes, there is a town fairly nearby, King. It's a town called Shadridge, and it's just outside of this forest, not too far away. So while you're searching through this forest, you find that you find a bunch of mushrooms that are growing around and on the base of a tree and the roots around this tree. And you investigate them and realize, yeah, these ones are edible. They're not poisonous ones. They're totally fine. They're a bit chewy and a bit rubbery if you eat them raw, but once you cook them up, they're pretty nice. And so you're cutting some of these up with your dagger. You get a bunch of them and store them away in like a large leaf and roll them up and put them in your bag, so that you can cook them up later. And while you're cutting these things up, you notice a small sort of string, a small kind of slightly like a cord, I'd say, slightly larger than a string, smaller than a rope. And a cord leads from nearby, maybe about 5 feet away, just sticking out of the bottom of a bush. And you head over and you kind of investigate it without touching it. But with your perception check, it's high enough to notice that the cord is leading to a snare trap that's tied up in this path. And the cord that you saw heads hidden underneath that bush, and then up the back of the tree that you were just at, and then is attached to the top. And it's one of those whip you upside down kind of snare traps. So you've seen a trap that you might have walked into, but you had high enough perception that you didn't, and you recognize that someone has set up a trap in this vicinity. It could be nothing. It could be with malicious intent, like goblins or whatever, but it also could just be hunters. You do know that the Fairwoods contain a few different villages, a few different elven villages, and so perhaps it's just a hunter from an elven village. You don't notice anything significant about the trap. So one last chance, King, to decide if there's anything else that you want to do this morning. Now that we've got enough food for, it's about large enough for. I mean, if you were to step in it as a dwarf, you would probably get a pretty nasty fracture to your ankle as it suddenly whips you upside down. But it could just be large enough for a deer. Like it's about large enough for a biped, but it could just be that way because of wanting to catch larger animals. So what do you want to do, King? You want to head back to Shadridge, the town, or do you want to investigate where this trap was laid, or why? Do you want to stay in the forest and do anything else? Do you want to hunt? Do you want to go back to the goblins? And to trip the trap and see who shows up. All right. So, as you are hunting for your breakfast, you're hunting for your meals for the day. You've gathered up enough mushrooms to cook up, and you think, I want to see. I want to see. I'm just curious. I want to see if there's anybody else in town. Because if nothing else, then at least when they show up, I can warn them that there's a goblin camp nearby, and I may have dealt with them, I may have not. And so, you bring out you just grab a stick nearby, and you tug on the cord just in a way that it suddenly you hear one of the branches that had been creaked and pulled right over, and it suddenly is released and sets off, and it makes quite a racket. And as the trap goes up, there's a counterweight that seemed to have been made out of just like rusty old metal and things, all put into a net that comes down and crashes and makes a big loud noise and you're pretty well assured that it's not a stealthy trap. This is definitely a hunting trap that has been used for alerting people nearby that the trap has been triggered. So you trigger it, and then you stand by and watch. Effectively, you stand by and watch, and you get an arrow out, and you've got it just sort of just casually knocked, just in case. And then there's a moment or two, maybe 3 minutes go by before. Why did you trigger that? And you look around and you don't see anybody. Why did you trigger the trap? You hear the voice again. I wanted to see whose it was. So I wanted to give. Sorry, Scottish. I wanted to see whose trap it was. I wanted to give you some warning about goblins in the area. And the voice says, "Right." And he steps out from behind the bush, and you can see an elf, a wood elf, looking very well hidden in the bush. They're not exactly wearing ghillie suit, but not far off. They've got a whole bunch of leaves and twigs and things strapped to them, and up in their hair, in their beautiful, otherwise very beautiful hair, they've deliberately placed large twigs with leaves on them and stuff like that. Will you help me to reset it? You say, "Hey, I'll help you. I'll help you. I just needed to talk to you. That's all. I offer you no threat." And you place your arrow away. They say, "You from round here?" And you say, "Well, not originally, but I've been here for a little while now, yeah. Because your kind is not." And you say, "Aye, dwarves are not from this far, but I'm from Shafkushel." "I'm sorry to hear that," he says. Apparently he's heard of the story of what happened. And so you say, "There's goblins in the area." And the guy goes, "I am aware. They raided our camp, our town, our settlement. We have much to rebuild. Thank you for letting us know, but we are aware." Is the elf not curious about Mel? That's a good question. I think Mel would have been hiding, and at this point she starts to crawl out from behind the tree and wander up next to you, not making sound with her wings. And he says, "Oh, this is a friend of yours." And you can see his hand goes to his bow, like just in a sort of subtle way, but a way that's like, got to protect myself. He says, "Hey, this is Mel," and he says, "It is lovely to see you, Mel." And he speaks to her in Sylvan, and you understand it, of course. And she says,
"Oh, another person who can speak the language I can speak."
And he says, "Oh, I did not expect that you could speak the language. I should have, really. Most of your kind can speak the language." And at that, both you and Mel seem to be taken aback. And Mel says,
My kind, you have seen other people like me?
He goes, not quite like you, my friend. Not exactly a bee, but I mean the blood that runs through your veins that makes you exceptionally large for a bee. It can also run through other veins, other animals. Animals that are much larger in size than they should be, than they are normally be. Um, they usually are imbued with the ability to speak in this tongue.
So, other sort of giant animals?
That is right. Other giant animals.
And these other giant animals are in the forest?
There are some, yes. They are not exactly frequent, but they are around. Oh, and you say, oh, well, I've never actually met another giant animal. What sort of animals are we talking? And he says, I would love to stay and chat. And then he realizes he's still talking in Sylvan and says, but I have get back to his voice. I have to reset my trap, if you don't mind. So you take a moment to help him with this trap the next 10 minutes or so as you reset the trap. Apparently he is familiar with the forest, and his town has been ambushed by these goblins at some point as well. So I will put in !elf, ELF, if you want to decide what the Apis should do next. Oh, and somebody wanted a lag test, didn't you? We'll do a lag test in a second. Actually, there is quite a lot of lag. Nobody's put in elf yet. That's quite a lot of lag. So !elf if you want to make the decision on what we say to this guy, or where we go from here, what we want to do, anything at all. You just get to decide what Apis does in the next part of this story, effectively. Are we not telling him that we raided the goblin camp? I didn't choose to tell him that on your behalf, Scatty Squirrel. But if you wanted to tell him that, then you can enter the draw and make that decision. When it's super open like this, it actually can be quite hard. That's fair enough. I just don't want to make too many story decisions for you, because it's your character, not mine. Alright, I'll give you a few more seconds. So we have, to give you a bit of a recap, we have woken up this morning after a nightmare. We wandered through the forest for a couple of hours, telling Mel our backstory. And then we stashed our money so that we weren't going to lose it if we were robbed or an accident happened or something. And then we walked downriver foraging as we went. We found some berries, some edible roots, and some mushrooms. And then we noticed a snare trap, and we triggered it to see who would show up. And an elf in a ghillie suit showed up and asked us why we triggered the trap. And we've just told them that there was goblins nearby. We've told them there's goblins nearby, and that we triggered it so that we could talk to him and see what was happening. And Iron Siege 2320. Iron Siege, you get to decide what Apis does at this point. Do we tell them everything? Do we tell them about the goblin camp that we raided and the fact that many of them won't be a trouble for him in the future? Do we follow him back to his camp and see if we can help them with rebuilding after the goblin raid? Do we go back to Shadridge and tell them what happened with the goblins, because they still don't know? And to remind people, especially people who weren't here before, there is a new farmer that's taken over the mead, the bee farm and the mead production. And she said that she wasn't super comfortable living on that farm and working on that farm until she knows that the goblins aren't an issue anymore. So at some point we do need to head back and tell her that the goblins are dealt with. Scatty Squirrel's got a lot of questions, but didn't enter the draw, so can't ask them. So Iron Siege, you are in chat. Take a minute to consider what Apis should do. And when you've got an idea, just type it up in the chat, and Apis will do that within reason. Toria, yeah, Toria needs to be told eventually that she's safe now, or hopefully she's safe now anyway. Iron Siege, we are told to follow him, and he's seen us in a dream last night, and there is something dark in our future. So you don't get to decide that sort of aspect of the story. Sorry, that was my mistake for making it too open-ended. You don't get to decide the things around the world effectively. You get to decide what Apis does next. So you can absolutely follow him, but you can't speak for him. You can't speak for him. You can speak for Apis. But he does ask if you wanted to come back with him. Because his town was destroyed or largely attacked by goblins and things. So while you're helping him put this trap back together, the elf volunteers his name. He says that his name is Helwyrryn, and he tells you that his name's Helwyrryn, and he comes from where did I write it? He comes from Helwyrryn. And it's a town nearby, and you don't feel like you've heard of it before, this town, but you've heard of elves living in these woods, so you're not surprised that you haven't heard of it, because you've never really followed, never really been with any elves to any reason to go to them or anything. Verin with a Y, Verryn, Verin. And he tells you about how the goblins attacked with a much larger ogre, and the ogre was the one who did most of the actual destruction of things, while the goblins were the ones who sort of picked clean what was left remainings. And unfortunately, he kind of caught them unawares and killed a couple of their better hunters, and so they were caught unawares and unable to track him down. So Verin says that this has all happened, and Apis, at Iron Siege's request, says, "Hey, well, I'm not exactly tied up with jobs right now. I can help you if you wanted me to come back with you, I can see if I can help you rebuild, or at least help you get yourselves back on your feet again as hunting and things. I'm a very good hunter." And Verin says, "Well, I'm not. I've got to give him a consistent accent. He's an elf, so he should just be Welsh." Well, that's at least something I can remember. I won't keep getting confused about his voice if he's just a Welsh elf. Well, he was a little bit nasal before, so I'll just make him a little bit of a nasal Welshman. So he says, "I'm not exactly sure that my people would take to your people. I'm sorry to put it bluntly like that, but they can be a little bit off-putting to strangers. I think we really could do with the help right now, though. So please do come with us. I'm not going to say that I didn't warn you that you should be not exactly expecting the greatest of welcomes. That's all." And he says, "Oh," Mel goes, "That is not surprising for elves. I have heard that about them. They are out to make friends with people that are not themselves, eh?" And he says, that can be the case, I'm afraid, yes. I try to keep an open mind myself. I spend more time in the woods than with my other elf friends, so we'll see. If you want to come, you're welcome to come." And so he sort of turns, and after the trap's now reset, he leads his way back into the forest, and you choose to follow him. You need a character list with accent points, yeah. We do still have a cloak that we haven't had time to look at properly. We've got an unidentified potion we haven't had time to look at, and we've got a mystery key that we haven't looked at either. So he wanders back into the forest, and you follow him. You're only walking for another sort of 10 minutes, and eventually you start to get to signs of the forest having been cleared slightly. and the undergrowth has been cleared. The trees are all still just in the same sort of random placement as they are throughout most of the forest, but the undergrowth has been cleared back and formed into more usable walkways and paths. And from this, he steps up onto one of these paths and he says, "It's only about another 5-minute walk from here. Thank you for the offer of help. I appreciate it, and I'm sure my friends, once they realise the predicament we're in, I'm sure that they'll appreciate it also." Where are you from anyway? And you said you're from Shafgushel. Were you there when it happened? And Apis, what do you guys think? Would Apis like to talk about it with strangers, or would you just kind of just dismiss it? Would you just kind of be like, yeah, I wasn't there when it happened, or would you go into detail? Probably not discuss it with strangers. Dismiss it. That is true, Ajo. Apis isn't very trusting of strangers. That is one of the details of them. So, so you just say, no, I wasn't there. And he says, "Oh, very well. That's probably for the best. Did you know anybody there?" And you say, "I'd rather not talk about it," and kind of shut him down a little bit. And he goes, "Oh, very, very, very well. I understand. I'm sorry for my questioning. So, it seems like he's hunting for words, but you just end up walking on in silence for 5 minutes. Eventually, you see, you sort of round a corner of a particularly large tree, and you can see in front of you, it kind of dips down a little bit of a hill. It's got grass on either side that seems to have been like tended and kept weeded. It seems like they're trying to keep a nice village here, and the path ends in two trees that have been cultivated to kind of curl over one another and form like an archway. And he says, "Well, here we are then. It's lovely to have you here. If you don't mind, perhaps it would be best if you and your friend wait here for just one moment while I go and warn people that you're on your way." And you sort of nod, and Mel agrees. And he kind of Mel drops down to the ground and sits next to you, and he walks off down the hill and past the sort of manicured lawn, as it were, and through these archway of trees. And you can see past this archway of trees there are wooden buildings built down on ground level, maybe only a dozen or so buildings that you can see dotted between the trees of the upcoming clearing. And you may be able to, what's Apis? Yeah, you're proficient in perception, so you've got at least a +4 when you're in a +6 when you're in a wood, in a forest area like this. So you've got a decent perception, enough to be able to see like there's one or two other elves in this clearing, and you've also got a good enough perception to notice that several of the houses are damaged. So you just sit there for a good 10 minutes or so while you talk to Mel. And Mel says back to you, just talking about the guy and how he doesn't seem like he's leading you into anything dangerous. And Mel says, "No, he seems like a nice enough sort. I think he might be the first elf that I have met, but I have heard many good things about elves. They are beautiful and they have very good poetry. It just takes them a long time to make friends with you, I've heard. You need to live a long life if you are going to make friends with elves. That is what Jack told me anyway." Jack being the farmer that once owned the mead farm before he was murdered by the goblins. After about 10 minutes, the elf returns, and he walks up the hill, and he's followed by another elf. And this elf has much longer hair and no twigs or anything on it. They're not wearing ghillie suit. She has sort of dark brown skin with flecks of green in it that kind of catch the light as she walks under the canopy, and the rays of light that are streaming through the canopy catches over her skin. The green glints from it. She's wearing long flowing robes of greens and browns tied together with a golden brown cord. And she walks forward, and he says, well, he says, this is my new friend Apis that I was telling you about, and Apis, this is Sidon. and you step forward and sort of offer an elvish kind of greeting. There's sort of there's something that you, let's say a particular type of handshake that you happen to know is a polite elvish greeting. She recognizes that you're at least trying, which is a good start, and she sort of gives you a reciprocated dwarvish greeting, and she says, "My name is Sidon. I hear you are here to try and assist us in our rebuilding. I also hear that you have actually, did we tell her about the goblins? Yeah, we were the one who raised it, saying that there's goblins in the area. I hear that you are aware of the goblins in the area, and from your personage, I can see that you are a hunter, yes? A giant bee. It's been a long time since I've seen one of your kind." Of course, Mel doesn't really understand what she's saying because she's speaking in common. She says, "What exactly is it? Your skills that? What are your skills that would allow you to help us in this rebuilding?" So, what do you guys say? She's asking? What is it exactly that that you guys can do? How is it that you can? How is it that you can help? So you mentioned. Well, I heard that the ogres and the ogre and the goblins, unfortunately, put to rest a couple of your number. Some of the better hunters caught you off guard, and she says they were more than capable of taking that ogre down if he hadn't have caught us by surprise. It's just that they were meditating when he arrived and attacked, and unfortunately circumstances dictated that the war was not in our favour that day. But they were more than enough, and she seems like she's perhaps on the defensive, not wanting it to seem like they are incompetent at defending their own homes and their own town, and is making excuses perhaps as to why they were caught unawares. You say, I'm sure they were wonderful hunters, and I'm very sorry for your loss. I myself have been hunting for several years now, so I think I could at least help with that. Maybe I could provide you enough food to fill your stores again. What exactly was it that the ogres and goblins took? And she said, just the one ogre. They took most of our dried food. And they also took our valuables, just random trinkets and things that have sentimental value. You say, well, I'm sorry about that, but I can help refill those stores. I know that it's coming up to summer, so you shouldn't have too much of a problem finding food of your own. But until you have time to focus yourselves on rebuilding your own establishments, your own buildings, I can at least help with focusing on refilling them with food. And she says, I appreciate that. And what is it that you ask for in return? What do you guys think? What is it that you ask for in return? They don't necessarily know it's their scatty squirrel. They never said that they knew where the goblin camp was. They knew that there were goblins in the area from having been attacked by them, but they did not necessarily know where the goblin camp was. Nor did they really have the people to track them down and attack them in a counterattack if they've just lost a few people. We do know stonework. We are pretty good with stonework, being a dwarf. No worries, Teza. Can we track the ogre? We could potentially track the ogre. We are pretty good at survival and tracking things. We could definitely track the ogre if we wanted to. We want nothing in return. We want rope in return. We want a potion in return. Help identifying our potion. Hey, all right, that's a good idea. Have a look at our potion. All right. Yeah, I like it. So you say, I need very little in return. I'm happy to help you just for the need of helping another person. I'm happy to help. Uh, if you insist on something, then perhaps food for my belly and perhaps a rope. I did actually lose my rope recently. If you've got any spare, then maybe you could cut me off a section. And she sort of smiles and half laughs, and she says, "We have rope. We have lots of rope. We can do rope for you." I was told many of your kind would have asked for gems or gold. Perhaps the stories are not all true about our peoples and yours. And you, not sure whether to take offence at the implication of dwarvish greed. You sort of just nod and let it go. She says, "We've got rope. If you bring us food for the night, you can join us for the feast. And we may even have a place for you to rest the night." And you think that's very high praise indeed. And as you're about to turn and talk to Veren about what to hunt and where to hunt, you suddenly remember the potion, and she says, "If that's everything, then I better get back to it." And then you say, "Oh, there's just one more thing, actually. Sorry. I found something recently," and you don't volunteer where you found it just yet. But you say, "I found something," and you take out the potion, and you say, "Do you happen to know anything about potions and magic and vials of things like this?" And she says, "I'm relatively familiar with the brewing arts, yes." And she holds out a hand for it, and you hand it over, and she says, "I could probably identify this for you if that's what you're asking. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to know what it is before I
With
end
a
up
nat
drinking
20
it."
on my perception check, I see you following me.
Thank you, Faney. Very nice. I'd like it if I know what it is before I end up having to drink it in a desperate situation. She says, "Very well, I will get my friend onto that for you. He's very good with identifying potions. He's rather a bit of an alchemist himself. I'll leave you to talk to Veren about what it is that we hunt in these parts, and you can work together to perhaps take one down." And she turns around and starts to glide back towards the village walls. You're still up on the top of the hill. You haven't been invited into the village yet. But the elven man next to you, Veren, he says, "So we're hunting, are we? Hunting partners. I'll be interested to see what you can do. What we like to hunt around here are elk. There are elk in the forest, and we can take one of those if you like. We could hunt rabbits, and there are other things. Birds. We could set out bird traps. What exactly have you hunted in the past?" And you say, "I've hunted a lot of things in these woods and others. So whatever you want. Perhaps an elk, because then it'd be the largest animal we could find, and fewer things have to die." And he sort of laughs at that and says, "One after my own heart, it seems. Very well. Let us track an elk." And he sets off with you, and you start to hunt. You start to hunt an elk. If we come across a deer like in that dream, I swear. So you hunt. I'm gonna roll another survival check to see if you get there before he does. If you find the tracks before he does. So +2 because if you're in a forest and it's your favorite terrain, so that takes it to a 21. So you're only hunting for maybe about 45 minutes or so from this point before you start to find the muddy tracks that you're looking for. You know what to look for. You've hunted elk before. You know what their tracks look like, and you find one that looks kind of like a fawn. You kind of dismiss it. He finds one that kind of looks familiar, but you say, "No, that's a fawn. Is that? It's not going to be enough. We need to track something larger." And so you keep searching. Eventually, yeah, after about 45 minutes, you find the ones that you're looking for. And now, all dear, no. And you start to track those tracks, and you talk to this guy just a little more, sort of general small talk while you're hunting. But then you start to get close. You can tell by the tracks and how fresh they are that you're getting closer, and you start to bring your voices right down. And you ask Mel to stay a little bit back now that she's making quite a bit of noise. And you sort of stalk up, and you get to the edge of a clearing, and you can hear just gently rushing water. And you can tell that there's like a little bit of a wider point in a nearby brook that is slightly slower moving, but a bit of a lake sort of a situation, but a very small lake. And as you crest over the top of sort of a little mound of dirt, you can see that sure enough there is a decent sized elk that is stopping with its head down, drinking from this lake at the moment. And you draw out an arrow completely noiselessly, and you turn and you gesture to the elf, who creeps up behind to the side of you, and he pulls out his arrow as well, and you both pull back and you let loose, and almost instantaneously the two arrows strike into the side of this elk, who suddenly raises back. By the time it's even worked out where they came from, though, two more arrows have gone through its neck and into through its ribs as well, and it just goes down. And you rush up to sort of finish the job, make sure that it's not going through any unnecessary pain. And as you approach the elk, the first thing that you notice is that those first two arrows that you struck off have stuck into the body of the elk in a crisscross shape. And you see this and instantly recognize the symbol of Ultimas. So it's up to you whether or not you think Apis would take this as a sign of sorts from the gods. But it is, as Verin approaches, he goes to pull his arrow out of the elk, noticing that it is definitely dead instantly. It seems the one that went through the throat killed the elk instantly. It didn't have to suffer. And he pulls the arrow out the back haunches, and then he goes to pull out the other one of his, and he stops and goes, "Well, would you look at that? Ultimas is on our side, it seems, today. No wonder we had such an easy time hunting this beast." And you sort of look at him and realise that he's recognised the sign as well. And he says, "Hey, seems he's looking down on us with fondness, at least for today." And he goes, "Well, I mean, if he truly is looking down on us with fondness, then maybe we'll be able to take down something else even larger before tonight's over. This is a decent-sized beast, but we could always go for larger. The amount of food that the ogre stole from us, this won't do even halfway to refilling those stores again. So I think we skin this one, and or maybe we take it home and let them skin it while we go out and hunt again. What say you?" And you say, "Hey, that's perfectly fine with me. I'm happy to keep hunting. The rest of the evening's ours. Offer our thanks and prayers to give an offering to the god." We could do that. Can we ask Verin about Ultimas? Ultimas. Ultimas is the god of hunting, and it's spelt Alta. In my head, it's Altames. Ultimas. I'm pretty sure. So part of your brain wants to ask him about the god, and so you ask him about the god, and he says, "You surely familiar with Ultimas?" And you say, "I'm familiar that he's a god of hunting." And he says, "Aye." He says, "Well," he says, "Yes, well, he's a god of the beasts and of the forest, and without his help, you're going to go hungry, and without his help, without his kindness, the beasts won't take kind to you for trespassing through their lands. It's through the grace of Ultimas that we are allowed to reside in the forests. It's through his blessings that the animals don't attack us, and his blessings that we're allowed to feast on the goods that he gives us. So that's all really I can tell you about, I suppose. Let's make a religion check. See if we know anything more about Altamez. Religion. 21. Yeah. So all that he's said is it ties in with what we knew already about Altamez. He's probably the closest. He's probably the god that we know the most about. Him or Yolashti. We're not very religious, I don't think, as Apis Hive. We're not necessarily worship any particular god, but we are aware that the gods exist. Definitively, the gods do exist. There's nothing to be argued about. They have tangible evidence of their creation in the world around us, day to day. And there are plenty of acolytes who get their power through the existence of their gods. And so we do know that the gods exist, and there is a humongous pantheon of them. There are well over 20 greater gods in the sort of main everyday pantheon that each have a portfolio that kind of fills pretty much everything that you could come across in your day-to-day life. There is a god of luck, there is a god of the forest, there is a god of life and of birth, there's a god of cleanliness, there's a god of joy and levity and time off, effectively. There are gods for everything, greater gods and lesser gods. But the gods that you are most familiar with as Apis Hive would be Yolashti, who is a god of the forest and the woods, and let me see what else is Yolashti's domain. Let me remind myself, where have I written it? I don't have it open anymore, I forgot. I closed it by mistake. Let me open up my notes about the gods. Yolashti is a greater goddess of the life domain. Her portfolio includes plants, forests, fungi, and crops. She shares some of her portfolio. There's some overlap with Chatal. Chatal is another god. He is more of a god of crops and harvest and food, and making sure that you have enough food. There are feasts of plentiful feasts, and those are the sorts of things that Chatal is worshipped for, making sure that there is enough food to go around. So you are aware of Chatal and of Yolashti. You are aware of the one we were just talking about, Altamez. Who else would you be aware of? Let's see, what other nature domains would there be? Nature gods. Who else are the nature gods? What did we get? 21 religion check. With 21 religion check, we'd probably also be aware of Aratak, Aratak, who's a nature god of the oceans and rivers and seas and lakes and reservoirs, just water in general. But other than that, we know of a few names, but we don't know as much about it. So yeah, our new friend Verin doesn't tell us anything new about Altamez that we didn't already know. But it seems like he just worships him as an everyday person would worship him. He's not an acolyte of Altamez necessarily. He just appreciates Altamez's favor when he's had a good hunting day. And as long as we sort of don't get on Altamez's bad side for whatever reason, we will continue being successful as we hunt. So you pull the arrows out of your beast companion, your new beast quarry, and you say a little. You do a little with a 21 religion check. You would probably know a word or two to pay homage to Altamez as a thank you for the hunt. So you do this. You pay your respects. And then you start to bound up the front legs, and he starts to bound up the back legs, so that between the two of you, you can hike it up and start to walk it back to the village. Do we know who the enemy of Altamez is? We don't know necessarily anything to do with the because we're not specifically proficient in religion. We haven't trained in religion. We haven't studied it. We only have a +3 to it because we are generally very intelligent. We're quite book smart, but we haven't specifically studied religion. We certainly haven't spent any time at pantheonic temples or anything like that. So we're not well versed in like the ins and outs of the gods and the individual feuds, and so we don't know of any particular enemy to Altamas. You would know if you were to guess. Let's do another religion check now that it's specifically asking about something else. We're asking about the enemies of the gods. 15. 15's probably not quite enough to know if Altamas has any particular. I must be misspelling it. It must be misspelled. There it is. Oh yeah, it's a Y, not an E. There we go. You know of a god of the nature domain called Mirkozi. Mirkozi is a god you think of deserts and barrenness and wastelands and things. So maybe Mirkozi would be, because he kind of has the opposite domain to Yolashti, who's about the life of beasts and hunting. There's not much to hunt in barren wastelands. So maybe Mirkozi, but you're not sure exactly. We need a cleric. Yeah, just give up with the spelling. You can always ask me. You can always ask me for spelling later. Even I forgot how Mirkozi was spelled until I just looked it up. So you hike up this guy. You've got a +1 to your strength, so you're no what's the word for somebody who's really tiny? I was going to say it and I've completely blanked on it now. You are not a spring chicken. That's not to do with strength. I can't remember what word I was trying to look for there. Do they have alignments? Yes, they do have alignments to the gods. The alignments, the gods are one of the only times in my game that I even pay attention to alignment. It's only really the alignments, the gods that have alignments. The people on the earth, they're very. Your alignment changes moment to moment. No, wilting flower. I think that was the expression I was looking for, Ajo. Thank you. You are no wilting flower. You are no weakling. You managed to hike up the front end, let's say, of this elk and start to lead the way back towards his village, while Verin hikes up the back end, and Mel starts to buzz along in front of you. As you go, I'm going to make a perception check to see if you can sort of keep an eye on the path that you're taking and where you're going, and make sure that you can find your way back and everything. Shrinking violet. Thank you, Fancy. That was the expression I was looking for. You're not shrinking violet. I knew there would be. I knew there was a word for it. What I was looking for. A 9 perception check. +2 because you're a ranger in your favoured terrain. So that is 11 total. So as you're walking and talking, Mel sort of shuffles back and she starts to talk to you guys as well, and then she flies on ahead and comes back again. You need to walk a little while before you get back to the village. But as you're walking and talking, Mel says, you hear Mel say, Oh no! And then as she starts to freak and says this too late, you hear the cracking of twigs and the pushing of bush next to you. And then you see like a large movement right to the side of you. And unfortunately your perception, and Mel's as well, I rolled Mel's in secret. Mel's perception, your perception, and Verin's perception were all a little bit too low to see it coming. And you see a very large creature coming out of the bush not far from you. It seems to be about the size of a bear, and it has the back haunches of a bear, but the front part of it, from about the chest upwards, is made of feathers and a very rounded head with large eyes and a very sharp beak. And you see, possibly for the first time in your life, an owl bear. And I need you to roll initiative. Initiative. Oops. There we go. 11 for you, and Mel actually has the same initiative modifier as you, so I can do the same again for Mel. 12. All right. 12 for Mel, 11 for you, and then I will a drop bear, not a drop bear. And then I will get an initiative modifier for this guy. What is it? +2. Oh, he's actually got the same as you, so I can roll it again as well. 13 for him. There we go. So a 13 for your friend, and then 12 for Mel, and then 11 for you, and then the owlbear. There, they have a... Okay, not too bad. I can do this, and then make the modifiers as necessary. Okay, okay. So let's move over to the battle map. You can look at the battle map and start considering what you're going to do and where you're going to do it and how you're going to do it. And to give you a sense of scale, that owlbear is about 15 feet away from you, from the center of you to the center of them. So from the edge of you to the edge of them is probably about 10 feet away.
Looks cute and fluffies. Cute and fluffies.
You're carrying a dead elk between the two of you. Mel is over here and the owlbear is over here. And unfortunately, the owlbear got initiative. There you go. So this cool new spell tracker that Mike has made for me, Spidey NZ. We've got a spell tracker. We've got a little vine that shows how many spells we've got and how many slots we've got. This first leaf is first level spells. The second leaf is second level spells, third level, fourth level, and fifth level. We won't get fifth level until quite late in the game, as we are a ranger. So at this stage, we're only a level 2 character, and we have 2 spell slots, and we can use them as we want. The 2 spells that we know are, so Cure Wounds takes an action to cast. That's what that little A in brackets means. It takes an action, and Zephyr Strike takes a bonus action to cast. All right, I'm pretty sure we are ready to begin now. God damn, the longbow should be a +6. I forgot that as well. At least it's done in the code for it. Fancy's already been onto it and fixed it. All right, so where are we? What are we doing? So this is an owlbear. The owlbear has initiative. The owlbear uses its turn to... I need to do this on my third screen, the GM screen. What can it do? It's going to make multi-attack. So the first thing that the owlbear is going to do is it's going to bowl you over. It's going to rush in here. It's going to rush out of the bush. It's going to come right up to you. And it's going to use the surprise to make a strength check against your strength. It has advantage, I'm going to say, because of the charging forwards and because of the fact that it's got surprise on you. So as soon as I remember how to do that, there it is. I'm going to do a strength check with advantage. That is not actually that great. Not actually that great. And you are going to... Well, actually, Horseshoe, you could technically use that Horseshoe to reroll your initiative if you wanted to. Before we start anything. But I think it's a little bit late for that, unfortunately. Horseshoe to force them to reroll. You can use your Horseshoe to force them to reroll an attack. You can also use your Horseshoe to reroll any failed saving throws or anything like that. So we're going to do a saving strength. Save the Horseshoe. 11. All right. So their strength check wasn't actually that great. It was only a 14. But yours was even worse with an 11. So the first strength check they made was to bowl you over and get you in a disadvantageous position to attack from. So you are knocked prone and 5 feet back, and they push forwards. And then with the other attack, they've got multi-attack. They are going to make a beak attack at. So let's see, bounded in. Smashed you to the side. Actually, they're going to raise back and take a big clawing strike attack at this. Let's see, would they go for? Let me think. Owlbear. It's hungry. It's light in weight. It's waiting for you. It can smell that there's a dead animal nearby it wants to eat. But if it kills both of you, then it can eat you two as well. So it might scare you off and steal your food, or it can potentially try and kill you. I think it goes for you. Because it's got the advantage. So whenever it feels like it can win, it's going to go for you. So it bowls you over with its first attack, and then it brings its beak back, and it's going to bring it down on top of you and try and make a pecking attack, effectively. to try and hit you. So it's going to roll that attack, which is going to be a... Ooh! Oh, no, it's got advantage. It was a natural 1, but or a 14 total. And the natural 1 would have missed, obviously, but it does have advantage because it used its first action to bull you onto being prone, and when you're attacking something prone, it has advantage. So that was a 14 total to hit. Your armor class, if we click on you, you can... Is that going to... Why is it not letting me click on you? You should be able to click on you. Never mind, I'll do it on this screen instead. We have 13 armor class, which you can see up in that top corner anyway. You can kind of see over in this. Can you see here? Over here, there's a 13 and a shield. So you've got 13 armor class, so 14 is enough to do it. So I rolled the damage for that. That is 10 points of piercing damage. So the beak comes down and it hits you for 10 points of damage, taking you down to 12 of 22. Not quite bloodied, not quite half your hit points yet, but it was a pretty hefty strike. You fall to the ground, you're winded, and then you get a beak that comes down and strikes down right on your leg, and it feels like real crushing kind of piercing damage, and it does not feel nice at all. That was all that the owlbear can do on its turn, though. Needless to say, the front half of the elk has been dropped to the ground now. So Helwyrryn, on his turn, why are you moving now? Stop moving. Helwyrryn is now his turn. Let me turn off the initiative orders so that you guys can see properly whose turn it is. Like that. Helwyrryn drops the elk, obviously, and then brings out the bow and arrow and knocks it back, and almost point blank just tries to take an attack at this owlbear. He is also a hunter and has a +6 to his longbow attack, so I might as well just roll with the inbuilt one here. Attack longbow. There's probably going to be a lot of longbow attacks, so I'll copy that in case. Attack longbow. Here we go. He gets a 15 to hit and does 9 damage if he hits. The 15 is enough to hit. So the 15 is enough to hit, does 9 damage to the owlbear. The owlbear does not seem to like it as it sinks into his side. But it's that's pretty much all he can do. Let's have a look. Helwyrryn, has he got... Did I give Helwyrryn multi-attack? I don't think I did yet, because that would make him level 5. He's not got level 5 yet. But as a bonus action, what he does do is he casts Hunter's Mark on it, which I forgot to do before the attack, but I'm going to pretend like I didn't forget to do that before the attack, because I'm the boss and I can do what I want. So he gets an extra d6 damage on that. Ooh, an extra 6 as well. So he pulls back the bow and arrow. He looks at the owlbear, and then he kind of just pulls up on his hand. He gestures with his front hand, and that same motion seems to jut up a bunch of the grass around the owlbear, which seems to tear from its roots and just like plaster itself to the owlbear from all around it, covering it in sort of like grass. And the grass kind of seeks into the fur of the bear fur, and between the feathers of the neck, and it just kind of covers it in this sort of grassy texture, which gives it kind of a greenish tinge to it as he brings back his arrow string and lets go. The arrow flies forwards only 5 feet before it strikes right into the owlbear's side, and where it strikes, all of the grass around that area seems to push into the wound and dig it and kind of tear a little bit and push open. It seems to do extra damage to the owlbear because of the Hunter's Mark. So I shall account for that extra damage here. Minus. Alright, the owlbear is far from being wounded yet, but at least we have started kicking it off. And then with his movement, he's going to get the hell out of here. He's going to get to a safer place. He's going to move around here. He's going to get over here, and then he's going to like make lots of noises and try and like, get out of here, come for me, you bugger, and he's going to try and distract the owlbear from attacking you. That is his turn. I'm going to turn him off and turn Mel on. Mel's turn. Mel is going to use her once per day ability to summon a swarm of bees. Let me just check her stat block. Make sure that I'm not missing anything. Summon swarms, recharges on a long rest. So she's got that back. No worries, no worries. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm not missing anything. She sees this coming. She sees that you are in potentially dire straits, and she starts to, and she's calling out to the forest in a bee-like voice. And instantly, out of the grasses, the bushes, the trees, everything you start to hear whirring, and they start to just come together from all over the place, crawling insects from around the ground and flying insects from out of the bushes, until eventually this swarm of insects, not just bees now, you notice that the bees that she summoned during the goblin fight were just an entire swarm of bees. This time it's actually just a swarm of insects galore. And it's a ever so slightly larger swarm than you have noticed before. It seems to swarm around, and it swarms right over the body and the mass of the owlbear, and starts to sting and things. Let me have a look. Blah blah blah. Uses the stat block. Uses Mel's. Yeah, it uses Mel's commands. It goes on Mel's initiative. All right. So at the end of Mel's, she gets to move first. So where does Mel go at the end of her turn? Mel is going to get up and sort of fly around in front of the owlbear to kind of distract him, making lots of noise, and end up behind him. Just like circles around him a few times, ends up behind him. Sorry, let me click off of that so that you can actually see where Mel is. And then at the end of her turn, the militia get to have a go, so they are going to roll their attack. What is the militia's attack again? All of this needs to be so much simpler. On this screen, I've got 3 screens going on. On this screen, militia, they get to roll an attack. I should just be able to click attack, shouldn't I? Where is it? Bites. There we go. Bites and stings, and there's the bloop to say that it's gone. So they attack with a 17 to hit. 17 is enough to hit, and they do 2d4 plus 1 damage. Here it comes. 5 points of damage. 5 points of stinging and biting and piercing damage as the owlbear becomes feasted on by these insects. And then it is Apis' turn. So while I am doing the damage for that, we need you guys to what's with the violin? I don't see the violin. You guys need to decide who is going to decide on the first turn of this round for Apis Hive. If you want to be in with a chance to decide on Apis' first round, we're going to make it !owl, AOWL, !owl in the chat. If you want to be in with a chance to decide what Apis does on this first turn of combat. Meanwhile, the owlbear takes the biting damage. There we go. Alright. So the owlbear's still not looking wounded yet, but there's a decent chance at least. ! Cookie. Let me think. Is there anything else I need to do? You are there. Mel's militia. I can move you to the side while I'm waiting. Mel's Militia, Owlbear. There we go. Hydrate. Thank you. All right. Enter into the chat !owl if you want to be in with a chance to decide what Apis does on this first round of combat. You have an action, a movement, and a bonus action. The only thing you can do is, well, there's two things you can do as a bonus action. You can cast Zephyr Strike, or you can swap weapons if you've already got a weapon drawn. You don't currently have a weapon drawn because you weren't hunting anything. But you can draw a weapon as part of an attack, so it doesn't cost you anything to draw a weapon. It's considered a free interact with an item. Hey Elbrown, good to have you here. If you want to be instantly thrown into the deep end and have a chance to decide what Apis does on this first round of combat with an owlbear, you can type !owl into the chat. OWL. The insects are not necessarily obscuring the owlbear's vision. They're just trying to distract it, and so is Mel. Everybody seems to be trying to offer it other targets to go for, so that it doesn't just claw into you immediately. We definitely could Zephyr out of range. We can crawl away. We could, but that opens up opportunity attacks. You're at work, so you can't stay. No worries, Elbrown. All right, let's draw it then. 3, 2, 1. Teza Mill. Welcome to the chat. It's good to have you here. Good to have you in the channel. And you get the chance to decide what Apis does now, Teza Mill. Can you make a message in the... Oh, there's your message. So, in case you are completely unfamiliar to your options here, we can talk it through. What does Zephyr Strike do? So Zephyr Strike is a bonus action spell that allows you to move like the wind. I'll read it out to you exactly, word for word, so that you know exactly what it is instead of just my parodying. Is it there? Oh, it's already there. Bingo. We've got a command for it. Of course we do, because Fancy's onto it. Or whoever it is that made that command is onto it. The bonus action lets you move like the wind. Until the spell ends, your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. Once before the spell ends, you can give yourself advantage on one weapon attack or one weapon attack roll, and the attack deals extra damage if you hit. And whether or not you hit or miss, your walking speed increases by 30 feet until the end of that turn. So if you cast Zephyr Strike as your bonus action, you would become real light and able to move around the place real quick. You wouldn't get opportunity attack if you moved out of range of this owlbear. It wouldn't be able to strike you again. And then you can attack it with a longbow. And you could even give yourself advantage on it if you wanted to. You know it was Fancy. I do, but I don't want to just assume and give a Fancy other people's credit. Can you Zephyr Strike and then you can attack? You absolutely can, yeah. Let's do that, Teza says. All right, wonderful. So, in this moment, the owlbear bursts out of the trees and bowls you over, and then reels back and brings down the head and bites you real hard on the leg. As you do so, the sheer pain rushes through your system like adrenaline. And for a brief moment, you white out. And you hear a voice say, "I've always been proud of what you do. You can do this." And you're only gone for like a quarter of a second before your senses come back to you. And you don't know how you know, but you know that was the voice of a god. And that today's not the day you die. You feel confident in that. And without even really knowing what you're doing, suddenly you spin your leg up and over around yourself, and you are on your feet before you know it. Let me pick you here. So you're on your feet, and as if anticipating where the claws are going to come up from, you just glide to the side, and it can barely even attack you before you out of its range. You move backwards, and you're moving with such speed that the things around you seem to be a little bit slower. You step back around the pond, and you step back knowing that you have the blessing of Ultimate. As you move, you just shuck up the quiver, and a single arrow flies up out of it. You grab it out of the air, you throw your longbow off the other shoulder and draw it back, and just let loose. Are we going, Tezza? Are we going to use the once per spell ability? So if you cast Zephyr Strike, you've already gotten the primary benefit of it, which is that the owlbear, you were allowed to move away from the owlbear without it attacking you. But there's a secondary benefit to the spell, which once per minute, like during the spell, you can give yourself advantage on an attack. Would you like to use that now, or do you want to save it? This is still your round, Tezza, so you get to decide. How hurt does the owlbear look? It's not showing signs of being on its last legs yet. It seems like it's got a good fight left in it. Just so you know, if for anyone who's joining us, when something is below half its hit points, I give it a little red dot like this to show it's showing signs of being wounded. So if it doesn't have a red dot, it is at least above half its hit points. So we're going to wait on it. All right. So you bring back the arrow and you just let loose in the direction of your owlbear. It lasts for 1 minute or until you lose concentration. All right, so let's make an attack. $23. Turns out we didn't need the advantage. 23 and 7 points of damage to it as well. 7 points damage. Nice work. All right, it is still not showing signs of being wounded just yet, but it didn't like that. As it's getting attacked by bees and bitten and things, it sees you roll out from underneath it and it brings its claws up to attack you, but you're already gone. You're swift. You've moved off like the wind. And then as it rears back and your arrow strikes across the front sort of pectoral muscles and gives a big deep slash to its front end, and it roars out in pain. It doesn't seem to enjoy that. You don't get the Hunter's Mark bonus. Only the guy who casts it gets the Hunter's Mark bonus. All right, nice work. The Hunter's Mark will add to Veren's attack damage. So that was Apis' turn. We've moved back. We've made an attack. We've used our bonus action. I can turn off one of these little spell berries. We've used one up, so we've got one slot left. Very nice, very nice. All right, then it is back to the top of the round, and the owlbear is going to get his or her turn. Let's have a look. Where is the owlbear? Goblin boss, that's him. Back to the top of the round, owlbear. So the owlbear has 2 attacks. He's got multi-attack. He's got a claw attack and a beak attack. Who's he going to go for with it? Let's see. He's going to try and get... Does he try and beak at these bloody insects? Or does he go for one of you guys? What he's going to... Let's see. Put myself into the owlbear. He's just attacked you. You've attacked him back. He doesn't like it. He needs to defend himself. The 2 of you are doing the most damage to him, so he's going to definitely go for you guys. So what he does, he or she, you don't actually know whether this is a male or female owlbear. He moves over here, and as he moves, because he's leaving out of melee range of Mel, she actually gets to stick him right in the butt with her big old 30 centimeter long stinger. So she's going to take an opportunity attack on him, as are the swarm of bees. So I just need to remember what to do with all of this stuff. Got so many things to click on. Her stinger attack is a 23 to hit, so that's going to hit. He's going to take 9 points of piercing damage and more points of poison if he fails his save. Alright, so he needs to make a con save now. She strikes him with her stinger. What does he do? I need to open up this one here. Constitution, there we go. That is nice. Succeeded on the con save, so he doesn't get the poison, the extra added venom damage, but he does get the piercing damage as she sticks him right in the butt. Sticks her. I should stop using his male pronoun because he is actually a female. Sticks her right in the butt as she stings her for 9 points of piercing damage. Where is he now? Where is she now? Takes her down to. And with that, with the 9 points of piercing damage, she is showing signs of being bloodied. Come on. Where are you at, you bugger? There we go. Showing signs of being bloodied, and then the Mel's militia also get to have a little turn to get a bite of sting of opportunity. But that's only a 5 to hit, so they don't do sufficient damage to her as she runs out of their range. All right, so she's showing signs of being wounded, but she does not. Let's see. So she does not go down from that. So instead, she's going to get all the way up into melee range with both Apis and Verin, and she's going to use her multi-attack on both of you. She's going to use her beak attack on you, and then she's going to claw at Verin. The first thing is the beak attack on you. That's a 21 to hit, and that's 8 points of damage. So Apis takes 8 points further from the beak striking into you. And now you are showing signs of being bloodied also, with only 4 hit points left. And then she bites you and then turns and strikes across at Verin. And let's see if Verin can avoid the attack. Hey, that's a 12. So 12 is not quite enough to hit his armor class. So she strikes out at Verin, and he brings up his bow, and she strikes across the wood of it and almost breaks it in two. Almost breaks his bow, but her claws it deflects a bunch of the claws and cuts into the leather armor. But it saves him from taking any serious damage. You, however, have got like a serious. It's gonna probably have dislocated your shoulder, maybe, or maybe it's just gonna bruise it real bad. But it bit down pretty damn hard on your shoulder. You're not grappled. It bit and sort of let go. It was a peck kind of thing. But you're not down. You're not dead yet. All right. So that was the owlbear's turn. That's all it can do. So back to the. Where is Verin? Verin's there. It is Verin's turn. Verin is going to... Verin can't afford to disengage because then they can't attack. They're going to have to shoot it point blank, which unfortunately is at disadvantage. But they're a decent enough hunter that they can do it, I'm sure. They're a decent enough hunter, I am sure. Let's have a look. Attack longbow. So with disadvantage, that'll be a 6, so that's going to miss. Let's roll again in case it's a natural 1. No. All right, so with a 6, unfortunately, Verin's just too close to get a decent shot off, and the damage to the bow seems to have thrown off the aim, and so they try and pull back the bowstring, but they can't knock the arrow quickly enough with them also defending the claws of an owlbear. So they will move round to this side just to get onto the other side, and they're not going to leave the range because they're not going to risk an attack of opportunity from them, but they are going to stay on the other side of them at least to try and attack them from both edges. That is Verin's attack. Hunter's Mark didn't give it any bonus to attack, so that is Verin. That's all that Verin can do. It is now Mel. Mel has summoned the swarm, so now she is free to strike herself. So she flies in here, and right from above, she brings her stinger down into try and aim for the back of the neck of the owlbear. And because it's now 3-on-1, she gets advantage on the attack. Well remembered, Banana Champion. Attack. What am I doing? Not on that one. I need to do it on this one. Mel, stinger with advantage. That is a. Unfortunately, that's a 10 or a 10, and a 10 will miss. So she brings her stinger down, but he's just striking out at Veren, and Veren's trying to fight back with a partially broken bow, and so he's moving to the side. She is moving to the side until and so Mel can't get the stinger in to actually pierce and do enough damage, unfortunately. As a free action, she commands the militia to come on in. Swarms around again. Gets all up in her grill and gives her an attack. They obviously have advantage as well because it's now 4-on-1. The swarm still has more than half the hit points, so that is going to be a 16 to hit, and 2d4 plus 1 again. Nice work. All right, 2d4. Oops, wrong one. Get rid of all of that. Roll. What am I rolling? I'm rolling in here. Roll 2d4 plus 1. Hey, 2 4s and a 1, so 9 points of damage. 9 points. These bees and insects and things are not messing around. It seems they are wanting this guy to go down now that they see that their empress, the empress giant bee, has failed. So they need to run in and protect her. What are you doing, Roll20? Stop glitching. I need to... There we go. What are you doing? He's not on 32. He's taken more damage than that. Bloody Roll20. He's glitching out. What did he take? He took down to 23. And then from there, he took another... So he'd be on... Yeah, okay. Got it. All right. He's showing she is showing signs of being heavily wounded now. She's not liking this fight at all. Be right back, Rob. Don't kill anyone. Don't forget the swarm. Didn't forget the swarm. The swarm has gone at the end of Mel's turn. That is all that they can do. So that is now Apis's turn. So, for this second round of combat, if you want to be involved, if you want to decide what we do in this combat, you need to type into chat !bear. !BEAR. Yes, I can put a little icon on you to show that you've still got Zephyr Strike on. Let's have a look. What should we have? Oh yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. We should make a concentration check. So we need to make a concentration saving throw. No worries, Tezza. Thank you for joining in. I appreciate you being here. I hope to see you again next week. We need to make a saving throw. Constitution. And we took how much damage? We took less than 10. So when you are concentrating on a spell, the same way that we are with Zephyr Strike, we when we are concentrating on a spell and we take damage, you make a concentration check, which is just a Constitution saving throw, and you need to get either a 10 or half the damage that you took, whichever is higher. Half the damage we took is less than 10, so we just need a 10 or more on our concentration check. Our saving Constitution is a 13, so we are still concentrating, even in spite of the pain and getting a torn shoulder from the beak of this gigantic owlbear. We can still concentrate on the Zephyr spell, and so we're still moving like the wind. We're still moving a little faster than we would normally be moving. And I'll add a little token for you to show that we are concentrating on something. Surely there's like a nice spell looking one. This kind of looks like a nice spell. I don't know what it does, but hey, that can be our Zephyr Strike spell token. Svana Blanket Burrito. Can you type something in the chat to make me aware that you are here and you've acknowledged? Awesome. Svana. Yay, there you are. All right, Svana, can you come up with what we are going to do in the second round of combat? Got 2 questions first. Hit me with your rhythm stick. We are still concentrating on Zephyr Strike, which means we can move away from this owlbear without an opportunity attack. 1. Can I cast Cure Wounds on yourself? Yes, you can. It does take an entire action though, so you wouldn't also be able to attack. And 2. Do we know it is baby season for owlbears? You do not know. Let's actually make a nature check and see if you know information about owlbears. Let's go skill nature. 15, and because it pertains to forest, that would get your +2 ranger bonus. So 17. With the 17, you would have definitely heard of owlbears. Owlbears are a monstrosity of sorts. You've read about owlbears being that you're very intelligent and well-read, well-learned, book-learned. You would have read that owlbears are theorized to have come from a peculiar wizard that was experimenting with animals way back in the day, maybe a few decades ago or millennia ago. You're not sure exactly how long ago. But they've been around ever since, and they reproduce just like normal animals, and they do lay, I think they lay eggs. I'm going to say they lay eggs because it's my world. I can do what I want. I'm pretty sure they lay eggs, although they have the reproductive system of a mammal, wouldn't they? No, they don't lay eggs. I've just talked myself out of it. Their back end is mammal, so they would give birth to live young. Or maybe they're monotremes, and they do lay eggs. No, bears. Bears are placental mammals. Owlbears would be placental mammals. There you go. So they do give birth to live young. They do have cubs. And you would anticipate that, being that it is late spring right now, it's probably like mid to late spring. Wait, no, I said it was early spring. I can't remember. It's sometime in spring. And you would know that spring is usually when animals have babies. And so maybe it's pregnant, maybe it's got babies. You're not exactly sure. You don't even know that this is a female one, to be honest, because you can't really tell the difference between female and male owlbears, being that you've never really met one before. You've certainly not fought one before. Chicks and cubs equals chubs. Chubs, I like it. They have chubs. They're a dark creation. I think Early said. Yeah, I said. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I said it was early spring when we first started out episode 1. Yeah, early spring. Like to cast Cure Wounds on Apis. All right, self-heal. So the thought runs through your mind. Are we going to move anywhere, Savannah? Because you can move away without getting an attack of opportunity. But then obviously you're limiting the owl's potential for who it's going to go for. If you move away, it's probably going to attack your friends. If you stay within range, it might attack you, which would save your friends, but then you'd obviously get some damage. So it's up to you. There's pluses and minuses to both. We still have Zephyr Strike active. Move away too. Cool. All right. So Apis, you've just shot this thing. It's run at you. It's pecked at your shoulder. You know that shooting it from right next to it would not be the wisest decision. You move away and you realize that you've stepped away before it's even noticed that you were there. Like you're moving so fast that it doesn't seem to even be able to register your movement. You step away as if you're the wind, and you feel like the entire battlefield is moving just like half a second behind you. Like you can move faster than anything else here can react to your movement. So you step away. You move way back to. Come on. You move way back to this rock over here, which I realize you can't see now. So give me 1 second to move that out for you. You move back here. There we go. And then you consider shooting it. And as you're drawing out your arrow, you think, this thing's wanting to eat. I wonder if it would have just come out of hibernation. It'd probably be still hungry. All of this is racing through your head in the moment. You think, it's probably just trying to eat. It might have babies. I'm not sure. What I do know is that really hurt. And so instead you drop the arrow back into your quiver and just clasp your hand over your shoulder to sort of pain gate against the pain that's throbbing through your shoulder from the bite. and then instantly you feel like the how would it manifest? You feel, let me think, how would this manifest? As you sort of as you are sort of self-healing, so just comforting yourself as the sore shoulder that the owlbear just bit, you feel like a almost like a damp, a real warm, damp, creeping sensation over your shoulder. And you look down and think, what the hell is that? Am I bleeding? Like it feels like you might be bleeding, like severe bleeding all of a sudden. But it feels like there's something between your shoulder pads and your actual shoulder that's moving. And you quickly sort of get your thumb underneath and you lift up the shoulder pauldron of your leather armor, and you can see that there's moss that's just growing over your shoulder. And it feels like it's making an exothermic reaction. There's heat coming from the moss around your shoulder, and it seems to be getting into the muscles and working it. And you are casting Cure Wounds on yourself with that for the first time ever, not really knowing how you were doing it. So we're going to roll a... What is it? Spells Cure. Let's hope it's good. 7. Nice. All right. So 7 takes you back up to 11, which is exactly half your hit points. So you are technically still wounded, showing signs of being bloodied. But you are at least half your hit points and not like less than a fifth. So you don't have time to think why on earth you've suddenly grown moss on your shoulder. That's something that can happen later. You think maybe there's something to do with, maybe that was something to do with the maybe it had moss in its mouth when it bit you. It doesn't make sense, but you don't have time to think. That's the end of your turn unless you wanted to do anything else. Who was it? It was Savannah, wasn't it? Savannah, you want to do anything else with your turn? Do you want to move any further away or move any particular direction from this guy? You've still got plenty of movement. The Zephyr is probably confusing you as well. Hide behind a tree, maybe. Oh, and we've used Cure Wounds, so I can pop off that berry as well. Hide behind the dead elk. Does the militia count towards flanking? It does count as a creature, yeah. It does count as an ally. So it does count towards flanking. Yeah, it does. Anything, Savannah? Any extra movement? Go to a spot that gives a slight advantage for shooting. Sure. All right. So you will you'll head back over. You'll head down over here and just behind this rock. Just so you've got a bit of cover and you can shoot from behind the rock. There we go. And then let me move this up so that you guys can see a little bit better. Maybe zoom it out. There we go. So to give you an idea of scale, you are now about 30 feet, about 25 feet from where you were and about 30 feet from the owlbear. There you go. How do you rule flanking? For me, I rule it by 3-on-1. Technically, because it's a large creature, it should really be 4-on-1, but you got 4-on-1 by the time the militia got there anyway. All right, so that is the end of Apis' turn. It is back to the top of the round and the owlbear's turn. Enemy, where are you, owlbear? There you are. Apis off. The owlbear is going to take 3. It's multi-attack. It's going to take. Those bees did a significant amount of damage to it in the last turn. Varen didn't do a lot of damage to it, so it's going to start by. It's going to make claw attacks at the bees. It's going to try and swat at them. Swat at the swarm of bees. With an owlbear. Where are you? Claw attack. That is, that's an 18. That's going to hit. Thankfully, they are resistant to slashing damage. Because obviously there's only so many of them that you can slash. What are you doing, Roll20? Why do you always do this to me? Just introduces random glitches. How much damage did it do? 11 slashing damage, but because they are... Can you just do what you're meant to do, please, Roll20? Why are you why are you only showing me half the page? What are you doing? Bloody waste of space. They have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Yes, okay. So it takes half of that. In my games, I tend to round up. So 11 halved is 6. The bees take 6 points of damage. And they are not looking wounded yet. The bear stands on its feet and just scratches at this big cloud of this insects that are biting and stinging and crawling up its legs and biting in its ankles and things. And it swats out and kills quite a decent number of them, but not enough to show any significant drop in the size of the swarm. So then it is going to, I suppose it's going to just double down and try and bite this swarm as well. Mel's Militia does level up, yeah. Mel's Militia grows in stats as Mel levels up. So it's going to double down. It's going to go for a bite attack against Mel's Militia. And it is... Nope, I've opened up Mel's Militia and I need to open up Owlbear. There we go. A beak attack that is 15 to hit. 15, 13 points of piercing damage, halved to 7. So they take a further 7 points of damage, and now they are looking wounded. They are less than half the hit points, and now you can see that a significant number of them get bitten and chewed up and spit out. And they starts to bite and peck, and then you can see them biting and pecking at all of the little ones on their shoulders. And now it's still there as Mel's Militia, but it's showing signs that it's wounded. It's less than half the size of what it was. That was both of its turns. The owlbear's not going to go anywhere. Now it is the friend's turn. What is he called? Helwyrryn, there you are. And owlbear, you can turn off. Thank you. Helwyrryn's turn. Helwyrryn is next to this owlbear. What can he do? He's got very little. He'd have a hunting knife for skinning purposes and things. So he's going to drop this semi-broken bow. And he's going to pull out a hunter's knife, and he's going to make an attack with advantage because the owlbear is sufficiently distracted by the 3 enemies around them. So Helwyrryn is here. They don't get the same bonus. They would have the same bonus as you for short sword. So I'll call it a short sword. Although it would do less damage, so maybe I will... Alright, I'll roll it short sword, but it'll do a d4 instead of a d6, so I'll roll that separately. Even if it hits, which it doesn't. So 11 isn't... but with advantage. My bad. Attack short sword. No. So with advantage, Helwyrryn unfortunately gets an 8 or an 11. So they're trying to stab and wound this owlbear. And while they're cutting it, it's just not getting through the layer of fat and the tough layer of skin on the outside. It's not doing sufficient damage while also protecting themselves. And so yeah, they can't do any damage to the owlbear this round. Helwyrryn is going to stay where they are though, because they feel like they can do some damage to this thing eventually. And now it is Mel's turn. Mel is going to attempt to... Let me just double check that I'm not forgetting any cool things she can do. Nope, that's all she's got at this level, so she's going to sting. Go for it, Mel. You've got advantage. So with advantage, that's a 14 to hit, which is enough to hit. And she does 5 points of piercing damage. And he needs to make a constitution saving throw to see if he gets any more poison damage. Let's have a look. First take that 5 points. This owl is still alive after the stinger goes into his system. But then she tries to pump venom into his body, and the owlbear needs to make... Come on, owlbear, open up. Thank you. And makes make a con save, which it's refusing to do. Come on, roll 20. There we go. And he failed. She failed her constitution. So she takes extra damage. How much extra damage is the poison? 7 points of poison damage. It's not actually enough to kill it, but it is on its last legs. You see that as it's biting down and nicking off all of the little bugs around it, Mel comes in and uses that opportunity, stabs it right in the side of the neck, right where the feathers start to merge into fur. She gets under that first layer of feathers and into the neck, and then pumps her back, her abdomen, and a bunch of poison gets, a bunch of venom gets pumped into her system, and she starts to seize up, and you can see the front legs go down to the ground. She's fighting very hard to not die, but her priorities have changed from let's eat to let's not die, and that is Mel's turn. So. Mel's going to stay within melee as well. Not going to use the movement, so now it is all the way back to Apis again. So if you want to be in with the chance to decide what happens on this turn of combat, let's say, so we did. Oh, the militia. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, well reminded. The militia are going to take their turn to try and finish off this beast. They are at half their hit points, so they have the same attack bonus, but less damage if they hit. The damage is a hit with 19. A 19 to hit. And they do 1d4 plus 1 damage. So the minimum is 2, and that's what they've got left. So you can't possibly go down. Can't possibly not go down. And it was exactly 2. It was the minimum. So this owlbear goes down with this venom coursing through their veins, and it starts to pull its head round, and it's freaking out. The back legs are starting to rush. It's overbalanced, and it's slipped a little bit down into this river, this sort of puddly area here. And then the insects start to swarm around, and with the last few of them, they just forego any sense of self-preservation, and they just crawl up into the owlbear's beak and force themselves into their throat, and they sting it until the throat swells up, and they sting in the eyes, they sting in everything, all of the soft areas, and the owlbear is no more. After like a tense few seconds, the owlbear goes down dead. Verin, as it falls over, Verin runs in and sticks the hunting knife right into the softer guts and pulls it out and does it a couple more times right around the throat. Runs over to the throat and slits it, makes sure that it's absolutely dead and doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to risk anything. The combat is over. You start to walk forwards as well, and Verin says, "Are you all right? That was quite a nasty bite he gave you, or I should say she gave you. Sorry. Are you okay? Is everybody okay?" And then he turns to Mel and says, Are you okay? Are you fine? No attacks on you, right?" And she says,
No, I am fine. There was no attack on me. Apis, are you okay, my darling?
And you say, I'm fine. I'm feeling a little bit. I've had a better day, but I've had worse. He says, well, that's it's good that we survived it. I didn't realize that the owlbears were waking up yet. I thought they'd still be in hibernation this time of year, but this one must have woken up hungry. I mean, the good sense is that at least now we can feast a little better than we thought we could with the elk. We might need to head back to the village with the elk and bring a couple of friends out to transport her. She's a little bit larger. But very well done. I think you've certainly earned your place at our dinner table tonight. And so between the two of you, you head back over to the elk, you hike it up, and you start to wander on back to the village. You take about half an hour to get back to this village, and then when you get there, you wait outside the village as well. You go down the hill to the sort of the archway, and as you get there, there's another elf that's standing outside of a hut nearby, and he seems to be smacking wooden boards onto the outside of the hut where it was heavily smashed by by a big club. It seems like all of the cabins here, all of the places of residence, are made of wood. They are wooden standing lodgings, and he's patching up as best they can. It's going to be a very quick job to begin with, to sort of just get the largest damage dealt with, and then they can go back and refix and make better things there. Make it better afterwards. So he sees you coming, and he turns and says, I can help you with that. And he gets up and walks over to the front, and he takes the front of the elk from you without really any sort of pomp or ceremony. Just sort of snatches the front legs of the elk from your hands and walks in. And Verin, as he walks past you with the back end of the elk, says, probably best to just wait here for a moment. And you see them walk off. He walks like three doors down from where he was fixing up the wall. And you see a much larger building, kind of silo-shaped, sort of more circular in appearance, and a little bit taller than the others. And the front edge of that is just torn down, and there's just wood everywhere. And they take it into that building, and then he comes back out. They both come back out, and he says, Rodin's going to come and help us fetch that owlbear if you don't mind. And so you walk another. Verin twats him over the head for being a rude bitch. Verin and Rodin head out half an hour walk with you. You gather from Rodin's demeanor that he's not happy to be having to spend his evening fixing up his town, let alone also in the company of a dwarf. But you don't take it too much to heart. You know that most elves tend to be a little bit look down their nose at other races, a little bit hoity-toity. And so you don't really take it personally. He's just racist. And there's very little you can do other than to just be a pleasant person and try and change his mind about his preconceived notions of dwarves. So you spend half an hour to walk out there with them. You get back to the owlbear. You don't see any other animals already feasting or anything. Mel's militia has dissipated by now. Mel comes back out with you as well. And between the three of you, you hack off the larger parts of the owlbear that's not necessary for eating. Although I suppose these guys would waste not, want not, and they'd take every part of it. Yeah, a community like this would definitely use every part of the owlbear, so they take everything back with them. And you hike it up, and you between the three of you, it takes a good hour to get back the half an hour walk, because it's a lot larger, and you have to stop and keep putting it down. And you decide that ultimately it's going to be easier for the three of you to carry it whole and then hack it up when you get back there, other than to hack it into three equal sizes, because the distribution of weight won't quite work out the right way. So you eventually, after another hour, you start to get back, and I think if I've got my time just about right, then you're probably getting to about evening time now. I think you've spent most of your day with these crowds anyway. You get owlbear raw bed from intestines, maybe. You get back there, and you this time nobody stops you at the archway. You walk right into the village, because it seems like Rodin decides that he doesn't want to carry this thing himself, so he's going to have to make do with you. And so you make your way into this storeroom, and as you walk in, you can see that the back edge is still usable. There's still lots of food in here, because there's dried grains and large sacks of wheat, and there's a few crates up on the higher shelves that wouldn't have been attacked by goblins for sure. The ogre might have been able to get them, but it doesn't seem like they did. But near the front edge would have been a wall where they hang up meats to dry, and that wall was entirely gone, and all of their meats were taken. And so you walk in, and you see the elk has been laid towards the back wall. You hook the owlbear in that general corner as well, and then you just, without even asking, you just whip out your hunter's knife, and you start to help them in skinning it. The three of you work in relative silence for the next hour or so, skinning both the animals and getting them prepared for a food. And by the time you're finished, it's well and truly into late twilight, early night kind of time. And by the time you finish, what was her name? Seyden has come back and has commended you on your hunt. She says, Oh, I understand that you caught an owlbear. And she wanders in and says, oh, it was a relatively skinny beast. She must have been hungry. I wonder if she had cubs. I wonder if she had chubs. And Varen says, I don't think she did, because she didn't seem to have the preservation of a mother from previous years. She wasn't like the one from last year. So I don't think she would have, but I'm happy to go out there later on tonight after I've had a bit of something to eat and check for a nest. It's spelled Saiden, Sathan, but it's pronounced with sort of like a soft th, a soft thd, Sathan. I'm happy to go out and see if she had cubs later. What would you propose we do with them if she did? And Sathan says, I'm afraid there's probably only one thing we can do with them. And he says, yes, I'm loath to agree with you, but unfortunately, I see the same outcome. I think she had to be. She says, yes, I think so too. Listen, Master Dwarf, what's your name again? You turn around. My name's Apis Hive. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, and thank you for your hospitality in greeting me here. You sort of say pointedly in Roden's kind of general direction. He stays silent on the topic. He says, well, you've certainly earned your keep for the night. And you hear from Roden. Listen, we're happy to have acquaintances like you and allies in what is needed in this village and this area of the forest. You are quite clearly blessed by Altamez, and any friend of Altamez is welcome in this village, she says quite pointedly towards Roden as well, who again stays silent. You're welcome to set aside a couple of fillets for yourself as well. We can dry them for you and send them on your way. We'll have more than enough meat to go around for tonight's feast, and more than enough that we'll keep for until we get through to summer. So you're welcome to feast all you want and take as much of the owlbear as you wish. I have been looking for some rope for you. I've actually got a one that I can show you after dinner. I think you'll be rather pleased with. She says, you say, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I won't overstay my welcome. Don't worry. I'll be with you the night. She says, don't worry. It's you're more than welcome to stay as long as you want. And then she turns and leaves you guys to it to finish the job. Varen has already hung up the owlbear skin on some hooks, some sort of makeshift hooks nearby where the wall has been destroyed. And he turns and says, Roden, can we make a priority of getting the wall to this fixed now that we've got meat in here? It's going to attract the animals of the forest. Roden says, of course, Varen, I'm not stupid. I'm already thinking about plans on how to fix the wall. He says, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to overstep my mark. Anyway, I'm going to go and see how Talilah's doing for the herbs and things for the dinner tonight. You guys can finish off here, and you're a little apprehensive perhaps as to sticking around alone with this guy, but you know you can handle yourself if he kicks off anything. Off the mushrooms, good idea, Lazy Titan. So as Varen is leaving, you say, oh, by the way, right before I saw you, I was foraging and I found a few berries, a few roots, and some mushrooms as well. Some particularly nice ones. They're the and you give the sort of the name of what type of mushroom they'd be. I don't know enough about mushrooms to be able to improvise something on the spot. You give the grey cap mushrooms. I don't know. I found some grey caps. And he goes, oh, would you like? Would you like to contribute them to the dinner. Is that what you're saying? Hey, that's what I'm saying. You're allowed to take them if you wish, and you reach into your bag and you pull them out and hand them over to Veryn. And Veryn says, "Thank you very much. Delilah will be able to do something very nice with this, I'm sure." And he leaves. And there's a tense couple of minutes go by as you finish filleting as best you can. And then Rudden turns to you and says, "So what brought you into this part of the forest then? It's not usual for your kinds to be around here." You say, well, actually, I'll put it to you guys. What do you tell him is the reason for why you were in this part of the forest? Do you tell him about the goblins at all? Aim for the balls. What do you tell him about why you're in the forest? Do you tell him about the goblins who are just here collecting mushrooms? Maybe I should put it to a poll. This is the sort of thing that we can make a poll for. Tell him the truth? Question mark. Tell him everything. Tell him mostly truths. Avoid the question, if I can spell question right, or outright lie. I can't spell anything. Big fat fingers keep hitting too many keys. Alright, 1 minute to vote on that. There we go. Tell him mostly truths. Okay, so we're going to tell him mostly truths, but not everything. And so you say, well, I was actually in the area because I was investigating a murder. Goblins had killed a friend of mine, and I tracked them and found out where they were. And it turns out they're possibly the same goblins that attacked your camp later. So the enemy of my enemy. We seem like we have a mutual enemy, and so why not work together? And that's pretty much where you leave it. You just leave it there and don't really tell them any details or any more. So you've told them mostly the truth, but nothing that you would have expected them to question. And so he says, You took out these goblins who murdered your friend then, all on your own, did you? And you say, no, not on my own, and not all of them, just the ones that I had to. And you kind of just leave it there again, just being polite, but not offering more than he's asking. As well, good on you for that, I suppose, if it's the truth. But we don't need your help. We can handle ourselves. So I think it's best that you leave tomorrow. And you say, I'll leave when I'm ready. I think your friend Sathan can decide when I leave. What's her responsibility over you guys, by the way? And he says, she's our elder, and she makes the decisions for the group. But she doesn't make all the decisions. There's still some decisions that we can make together. And you say, aye, no doubt. Anyway, I'll see you at dinner then, I suppose. And you stand up and leave the what was once a pantry room, and leave him to himself as he finishes up with the elk. You can hear the sounds of people talking nearby in Elvish, and you can hear the sounds of like a crackling bonfire. And sure enough, you can smell the cooking stew, sort of a stew-like concoction, lots of different herbs and lots of different smells of root vegetables and meat. And you make your way in the direction of the bonfire, which you can see crackling away merrily down the other end of the village. And there you can see Veryn, Sathan, and an elven woman that you haven't met, youngish. I mean, they all kind of look young in appearance. but this one has like what's the word I'm looking for? Platinum blonde hair, and a very light brownish skin with again that sort of flecked green tinges to it that sort of sparkle as the flickering of the flames illuminate her skin. She's wearing similar robes to Sathan, but hers are more patched up. In not in like tatty ways or anything, like in nice ways. They've been patched up symmetrically, but it seems like they've had some damage and been patched up over time. You also notice, because you're proficient in perception, so you're pretty good with it. You notice that her hands are quite damaged and burned and have very heavy scars all over them. As you approach, she kind of looks over and with a curious look, and Varen says, it switches back to common and says, "This is E05. This is the one I was telling you about, who helped me with the hunting." And she steps forward, the new lady, and says, "It is nice to meet you, Apis. I am named Talila. I don't speak very good with common, but it's good to have you. You are going to and she turns to the town elder and says, and the town elder says, to join us for dinner. She says, to join us for dinner. Say, I will be joining you to feast tonight, and then I might help you with anything else you need help with tomorrow, and then I'll probably be on my way. I don't want to overstay my welcome. You hear smells in Vietnamese. Is that right? In Vietnamese, directly translated into English, you do hear smells. That's pretty cool. So you so for the next hour or so, you chat as the food is being prepared and laid out, and it is a very nice elven feast. To say that they've just been attacked and a lot of their food storage is taken, it seems like they've laid out quite a lot of their winter stock. A lot of the winter root vegetables and any of the foods that you can forage from the forest in wintertime. They're using up the last of that to make way for the stores to be taken up by springtime crops and vegetables and all of that sort of thing. Now that you're down sort of the other end of the village, you can notice that on that edge of the village there is like an open area where there are some farms laid out, just small plots of land where they're growing vegetables and herbs and spices and things. So it's not all foraging; they do have some cultivating their own foods. And you get to know the other people of the village. You also meet an elf by the name of Eldor while you're there as well. Doesn't really speak to you much, but doesn't show outward hostility in the same way that Royden is, but doesn't really volunteer to start a conversation with you anyway. And only ever speaks in Elvish with Royden. And while you're eating the meals, Talila comes over to you with another plate of some sort of the meat on it, and offers to sort of just gestures and tasty. And you say, "Hey, very nice, thank you. Did you season this?" And she says, Did the flavors? Never mind.
Oh,
She
a
says,
new adventurer joins the
I'm
team.
sorry. Thank you for the gifted sub, Svana Blanca Burrito. She says, I'm sorry, and you say, no, don't worry about it. I was wondering, have you got my potion? And she says, oh, potion. Yes, I do know potion. I have it. Yes, I look at your potion. It is funny. And then she says, she sort of calls back over to side. Lashtor hörtiga bessi. Förastaleski roslatrava. And they both start to laugh. And then Varen starts to walk over. And he goes, she was saying that the potion that you have asked her to identify is somewhat. What is the word when there's it's a funny coincidence that the potion is a potion of comprehension, and taking it allows you to understand other languages. And she said it was funny that you were having trouble understanding each other. And she says, and she sort of laughs and understanding what he was saying, and you laugh in response. And he she toddles off at this point, comes back in about 5 minutes with the potion, and you have a potion of comprehension in your. So if I head back to the main page here, I can actually swap out your potion for one that's labeled properly. Here it is, items, potion of comprehension. Bing. And the unidentified potion can disappear. Can disappear. There we go. Oops, moving everything. Ah, the joys. There we go. Got a potion of comprehension in your thing. So, so to give you an idea of what that does, let me read it out properly, and then we'll end it there. Apis Hive, potion of comprehension. Where are you? What happened? Oops, that was my bad. It's not showing up on D&D Beyond. I'll just Google it instead. Potion of comprehension. When you drink this potion, oh no, it just refreshed the page. Thank you. When you drink this potion, you gain the effect of a comprehend languages spell for 1 hour. The liquid is a clear concoction with bits of salt and soot swirling in it. And comprehend languages is, it says, for the duration, for 1 hour then, you understand the literal meaning of any spoken language that you can hear. You also understand any written languages that you can see, but you must be touching the surface on which the words are written. It takes about 1 minute to read one page of text. The spell doesn't decode secret messages in a text or a glyph, such as an arcane sigil, that isn't part of a written language. So it doesn't decode secret languages or codes, but you can read other things. So for when you need it, if you ever need to understand what language somebody's speaking to you and you can't, you have a potion of comprehension that you can use once ever. It's a consumable spell, a consumable item. So you get this item given to you. She also has brought with her a about 50 feet rope, and she hands it over. She's got like a sort of a moment of reluctance on her face, hesitation, I'd say, more than reluctance. And then she says, and he says, Saidan, she says, and she hands it out, and he says, Saidan's so pleased with your helping us without judgment or asking too much in return, your humbleness, that she's giving you a particularly useful rope, shall we say. If you spend time with this rope overnight, you'll learn that it has properties that could come in useful. And he's handed over a magic rope of some sort. So there you go. He toddles off to eat the rest of his dinner, and you finish out the night having a rather nice night next to a crackling bonfire. And I will leave it there until next time. Thank you for joining me.